you seem like you're living your best life. I mean, I don't mean to speak for you, but you seem happy. You seem great.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I probably am living my best life now because I'm free to do that.
Well, Ivy, thank you so much for joining me on Growing Up Fundie. I'm so excited to have you on my channel. You were recommended by me, You weren't recommended by me. You were recommended to me by somebody who's a member of my Discord, and they also follow my YouTube channel. And they sent me a link to your channel, and they said, "I love Ivy. I would love to see her on an episode of Growing Up Fundie. Can you please make it happen? Can you please talk to Ivy?" So I reached out to you, and you agreed, and here you are.
Yeah,
So
and I'm so excited to hear from you.
yeah, and I messaged him again today, and I was like, "I'm talking to Ivy today, just so you know." So, but enough from me. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Where are you coming from?
Okay, well, my name is Ivy Rose Windsong Collins, and I am from Eastern Kentucky, from Floyd and Pike counties. So I grew up, kind of in the hills. It was a little bit backward, um, and people have very conservative ideas there.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up with very conservative ideas. I went to Pikeville College, which is the University of Pikeville now, and I got a double major in English and secretarial science, which both have helped me because I do edit. I'm a copy editor. Um,
That's fantastic.
Freelance. I don't do a whole lot of work, but that's what I do. I'm retired, but
Good for
I
you. Good for you.
still have some clients.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is good for me. I don't want any new clients.
Right, right. No more. Don't write to her asking her to edit for you. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. The ones I've got, they're great. I love them. I want to keep working for them. But I'm 71 years old now, so.
Wow.
But anyway, I have 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls, and I have 7 grandchildren.
Wow.
And they are, my family. That's everything to me. And I grew up with 4 sisters, no brothers. And I guess that's about it. Uh,
Yeah. And so, at what point in your life did you decide to deconstruct? At what point were you like, this is where I'm coming from, and that just no longer seems like the route I want to take for my life?
I was 60 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, I spent the first 20 years growing up. I spent the next 20 years getting married, having kids, and then the next 20 years finished getting them raised. And now I'm 60 years old. What am I going to do? I got to do something. And so I thought, well, what is it that I like? And I like writing because I had
Yeah.
I had written some books, published some books, which are on Amazon, most of them, and 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 I like the Bible because I was very dedicated to the study of the Bible. And so I thought, okay, what should I do? I should get a PhD in biblical studies. But I didn't
Wow.
I didn't have a master's degree. So I got a master's degree in theology and a
Wow.
PhD in biblical studies. It took 2.5 years to get this done, and it was the hardest thing I ever did.
It only took you 2.5 years?
Yeah, but it was so hard.
I bet. I
I
bet,
almost
especially that
quit.
fast.
I had a friend
Wow.
who encouraged me. He was a teacher at the college that I went to, and I'd worked for him. He was one of my clients that I did editing for, and he encouraged me. And when I was wanting to quit, I wrote to him, and he encouraged me to keep going, and so I did. Oh, but man, the dissertation, it was the hardest thing I ever did because what I was trying to do, and I won't be able to explain this because it's been so long.
Right.
Um, I was trying to think about the eighth day. The eighth day,
Mhm,
you read in the Bible about the eighth day. And I
mhm.
was like, what is that? So that's what I wanted to find out. And as I was doing it, I would come up with these answers, and I would go to bed. I mean, I would come up with the answers, and by about 3 o'clock, I would be like, no, that doesn't work because over here it says this. So I'd go to bed and I would pray. And the next morning I'd have the answer. But by about 3 o'clock in the day, there was another problem that would pop up. This went on for like probably 2 or 3 months.
Interesting.
Yeah, until I finally had it all down. But by the time I was done, I didn't believe anymore.
Oh, wow. So basically, pursuing deeper studies of the Bible proved that you no longer found what you needed in the Bible.
Yes, because I began to see that it was just this story that kept repeating itself
Yeah.
over and over. It was just different people, same old story. And I realized that a lot of it was just metaphor. And I came to the conclusion even that Jesus was just a sky god. And but it still took me 6 months. After coming
Wow.
to that conclusion, it took me 6 months before it dawned on me, oh, th- if he's just a sky god, if these are just stories, this is not real. I'm not a Christian anymore.
Yeah. And was that devastating for you? Was it was it uplifting? What kind of feeling did you get after that long of being so devout?
You would think that I would be sad or something. And I think there are two reasons that I wasn't. A lot of people say they miss Jesus, that relationship they had with him. But I think there were two reasons that I didn't. One was that while I was doing this, while I was getting my master's degree and PhD, my younger son died.
Oh,
And if I, it was the most devastating thing that could happen to anybody, I believe.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And I was living without my son. If I could live without my son, shoot, Jesus was nothing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, truly.
how I
Yeah.
felt. But the second thing was, I grew up in the Church of Christ, and there was never this personal relationship with Jesus that was talked about. It was always knowledge. We had to
Right.
seek knowledge. We had to have truth, and so that's what I always saw was truth. And when I found a different truth, well, okay, it's a different truth. But there was not a lot of emotion because we pretty much condemned emotion because you can't depend on emotion. Your heart is deceitful. So,
Interesting.
yeah. So it was nothing to me. I mean,
Wow.
yeah, except for, oh, my oldest sister.
I was gonna say, what did you tell anybody? Did you keep
Yeah,
it to yourself?
I kept it to myself until I wrote a book. I, well, I didn't keep it to myself. My children knew. But
Interesting.
I wrote a book called The Judeo-Christian Myth, and
Wow.
it was really horrible of me what I did, and I
Oh,
didn't
no.
realize it at the time. I published the book, and then I posted a link to it on Facebook, and that's how my sisters found out. And that was a
Oh.
cowardly thing to do, and I didn't
Yeah.
realize it until my niece pointed it out to me. And when she did, I felt so horrible. And I was like, should I apologize? And she's like, no, it's been too long. Let it go. but my oldest sister called me. She was crying. And she said, what happened to you? And I said, nothing. And she wanted to know why, and I tried to tell her, but she was crying because she thought she would never see me again.
Right.
And I said,
Right.
why? Why wouldn't you see me? And she said, well, if you come, we'll be praying. And I was like, I don't care.
Yeah. I'm not gonna melt into I'm not gonna turn into a pile of ash if you pray
Right.
around me.
Yeah, and so
Oh.
after that, that was it. She never said anything else. In fact, for a long time, she would ask me to pray for her. And so I just would kind of, try not to talk about it or say anything, you know,
Yeah.
because I mean, I love my sister. She's been like a mother to me, really, because my mother
Yeah.
died when I was 28. So, yeah. Well, she was
And
always like a mother even before that. But anyway, and then,
Yeah.
my family they treat me well. We
Good.
don't talk about it,
Good.
most of the time.
Yeah.
So,
And it's very interesting that when you say like, "Oh, my family treats me very well," that it's surprising because in so many of these stories, you hear about, "And I never spoke to them again, and they told me I wasn't welcome, and they told me this and that and the other. The church wouldn't allow me to come around my family anymore." And so when you
yeah,
hear a story like that, you think, "Oh, they just accept you?
yeah,
Interesting."
they do. I mean, like at the wedding, it was one of my sisters, it was her grandson, and we all, our family sat at one table, and it's all great. It's never bad. So I know
Right.
I'm lucky, and I'm sure a lot of that has to do with my age. My sisters are older. We're not going to fight, and we're we're too old for that kind of stuff.
Right, right. And now when you came to this revelation, when you were like, "I am no longer a Christian," were you married at the time? Like, how did you tell your immediate family what was going on or what had happened?
I wasn't married at the time, which really was a good thing.
I was
Uh,
gonna say, probably made things a lot easier for you.
yeah, it did. I mean, I was married 3 times, um, and I think religion. Uh, I was one of those people who I really took the Bible seriously.
Yes, yes.
When, huh?
Oh, yeah, I was just agreeing with you. I was
Uh,
too. Mhm.
yeah, I mean, and when it says that a wife is to obey her husband as the church obeys Christ, well, you don't question Christ. You
Nope.
just do what he says.
Yep.
And so I was really big on that. And I even wrote a book about it. It was called Woman, the Glory of Man. And I no longer have that book out there. I mean, some of the other books that I no longer agree with, I do because they brought me to where I am. I feel like they would help other people to come to
Yeah.
where I am. But that one, I could not leave that out there.
Like that.
Yeah.
Just take it
And
down. It didn't
yeah.
happen.
And even Christian women condemned me for it. They said I was making a woman like a child, but the Bible makes a woman like a child.
I was gonna say the Bible does that. The Bible makes a woman like a child.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so that was not good. And I happened to read this book called Fascinating Womanhood by Helen B. Andelin.
Right.
And
No.
she was really big on that sort of stuff. She said the man should handle all the finances. And my husband, bless his heart, he was horrible with finances. But I was great. I mean, if he wanted to buy beer, he would ask me, "Do we have money to buy beer?" And if I said no, that was fine. He wouldn't get it. So I read that book though, and she said that, and I thought, "Oh, I'm doing the wrong thing. I should let him handle the finances." Oh my goodness. We got we it was awful.
I
I
bet.
should never have done that. But
That's
anyway,
wild.
yeah, we ended up divorced. I mean, he cheated on me, and we ended up divorced. But
Wow.
then I had a second husband, and during the time that I was married to him, I came to the conclusion. See, in the Church of Christ, you can't get a divorce except for fornication.
Got it.
And so I came to the conclusion that that wasn't true, that divorced people, for whatever reason, can marry again. And he said that that caused him to lose love for me. Yeah,
Whoa.
yeah. And I said, it's so funny that I said that. I said, if I were an atheist and I shouted it from the top of the roof, uh, that should not change your love for me.
Right.
But it did. And he divorced me. And he said he divorced me because I believed in easy divorce. Now think about that for a minute.
So he lost the love for you and then tested out the theory. He was like, "This is the most horrible. This is such a horrible idea. I'm going to follow through and do it. I'm going to show you you're correct."
Yeah, I know it's crazy, but I don't think that went over well with the church. And so later, about 2 years later, he told me he divorced me because he didn't think we had a right to be married because our first divorces weren't right or whatever. I don't know. I didn't question him on it. But
You just let the
that.
trash take itself out. You're like, "See
Yeah.
ya."
Yeah, and when he said that, he said it on Bible discussion list, and everybody was just praising him that he was such a good Christian, that he would divorce his wife because he didn't think they had a right to be married. That's really noble.
Yeah, very. What
Yeah.
a gentleman. A gentleman and a scholar.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So, religion has just really messed me up.
I would
Uh,
say. But what's interesting is you have this background that would understandably make you kind of like angry and bitter and cold, but you're the opposite of all those things. How do you do that?
I don't know. I think I'm just I'm an upbeat person. I'm a
Yeah.
positive person.
Yeah.
And well, because truth has always been important to me. And if it's truth, it's truth.
That's 100% agree.
Yeah.
100% agree. And like you
Yeah.
can be mad at the truth all you want, but it's not going to stop being the truth.
Exactly. Buy the truth and sell it not. So if I feel like I've got the truth, I'm happy. You know.
That's awesome.
And my children have been great,
Yeah.
because I raised them, I took them to church all the time, Sunday morning,
Mhm.
Sunday night, Wednesday night. I would get them out of baseball games before the game was over, wash them off in the car and take them to church and all the gospel meetings and everything.
Well, and something as the daughter of a devout Christian woman, I can say with all sincerity that the entire time I was growing up and we were in church on Sundays and Wednesdays and at church events and things like that, it was all with the best intention. It was all because that was what you were supposed to do. That's how you get to heaven. That's how you raise good children. So it would be different if, she was like beating me and taking me to church every day or something. But
Right.
parents take us to those things because they were told that's how you lead your children to salvation. So they were just doing their best to make sure that we had a solid foundation to get to heaven and to save our souls. And it's like, who can
Sure.
argue with that,
I know. And my mother, she only went to first grade. She couldn't read very
Wow.
well, and
Wow.
she could read the Bible,
Mm.
but she couldn't write very well. We would always write her letters like to her sisters. And so I can't judge her,
Right,
you
right.
know?
Yeah, you're like she's literally doing the best that she can,
Yeah.
And if anything, it's like I'm grateful that my mom wanted to see me in heaven, like
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
great.
Yeah.
It tells me a lot. She doesn't want to leave me here behind and then
Yeah.
get raptured away. But
Yeah.
that's very interesting. And so it sounds like your deconstruction has been a very pleasant process. Have there been any downsides or any losses like of maybe friends or opportunities because of your deconstruction?
Well, because of my age, because I was already retired when this happened,
Yeah.
um, not really. I've got, I think, one family member who wrote me and told me that she couldn't have anything to do with me anymore. But we weren't that close anyway.
Yeah.
So,
You're just
it
like,
was okay.
just
Yeah.
cut
And
it. Yep.
I appreciated it. It was a very sweet letter. I understood it because she's really, really dedicated. And so that's okay. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. And one less person trying to convert you in your life is probably
that's
helpful.
true. Oh, and that's another thing. See, I expected that. I expected that people would just be coming right after me, but they didn't. And that's kind of shocking to me. I'm
You're
glad.
you're like you're like, I'm almost a little offended. Almost, not quite, but almost. If I felt different, I might be a little offended. But that's interesting too. I wonder if also there are people that we meet that we recognize can be changed. And there are people that we meet that we recognize cannot be changed for better, for worse. Do you think maybe you just give the air of somebody who has enough wisdom in their thoughts? And by the time you're telling everybody something, you've done enough research that you're not going to change your mind?
That may be it because one of my nieces said to me, she told me she cried for 3 days when she
Oh,
found out. But but she said she knew there was nothing she could do and that I would not change because probably she knew how I got there. She knew I wasn't going back. Once you learn, there's just no turning back. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
yes, yes, exactly. I could not agree more. 100%. 100%. I had somebody ask me that too. They said, "Do you ever find that people try to convert you?" And I said, "I think they take one look at my haircut and they're like, you know what? When she makes a decision, she makes it. She doesn't, she doesn't make any decision she hasn't thought about. She looks like she knows what she's doing. She seems confident. Like they take a look. They're like, she's not somebody who's going to be convinced of anything that she's, the opposite of what she's saying."
Well, I wonder too if some people think, because this happened like I was doing this when my son died. So I don't know. You might have heard of my son. Did you ever hear about the $500 tip for servers?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was my son.
really? I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah, my son Aaron, he in his
Wow.
will, he wanted us to give a $500 tip, and if he had any money, in which he didn't, because he spent his money, and he had, but it was a really kind of a cool will that he left, and so my older son wanted to do that for him, and so the family put together the $500, and we did it, and my son put it on YouTube, and it went viral, and of
Yeah,
course,
you did.
yeah. So we got all this money. So we were doing 500 tips. He went around the country, all 50 states, and did $500
Wow.
tips. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And that really helped me through it. It was like every week this was happening, and it was just such a blessing to me. If I can
I
say
bet.
blessing, I'm not sure what blessing means, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, but I
yeah,
get the sentiment. Wow, that's
yeah.
really cool. And had you deconstructed by the time of the passing of your son, or did he pass first?
No, he passed first. And so I wrote a book about him. It was called Aaron Collins Did That. And Seth, my son, wanted me to have it done in 6 months. He said, "You can write a book in 6 months, can't you?" And I said, "I don't know." So, I mean, it was 6 months exactly that I had that book
Wow.
published. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And so it's basically his life story, And,
Yeah.
but I think because that happened while I was getting my PhD, and then this was when I was 60. I was 60 and he had just turned 30. And when I was 62 was when this all came about. And I wonder if people thought that I just kind of lost it, you
That's
know?
what I wonder too, if they think
Yeah,
that's somehow related, the loss of your son and the deconstruction of your faith.
right. And I think some people probably think I got angry at God, but I did not. Why in the world would I get angry?
Yeah.
People die. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not special.
right.
People people lose children when they're 5 years old, or newborns. That has to be, well, not a newborn maybe, but a 5-year-old. Can you imagine losing a 5-year-old? I mean, my son at least got grown. He fell in love. He did a lot of exciting things. He went skydiving. He enjoyed his life,
Yeah.
and he died. But there's no
Yeah.
reason for me to be angry. But
Yeah.
I think that they may think that, but then I think other people probably think the grief, I just couldn't take it. Or they might think I think he's gone to hell. So, in order not
Oh,
to worry about that, I just got rid of it all.
interesting.
Yeah, but I didn't think that because I gave up hell long before I gave up Christianity. I mean, I just didn't even believe in hell. So that
Wow.
wasn't it. None of it was it.
Yeah, yeah.
But, but I'll tell you one thing it did do. If you When you lose a child, nothing else matters really. You don't care what people think about you. You don't care what they say about you. It just doesn't matter. It frees you to be whoever you are.
Right.
Because nothing anybody says to you is going to top that.
Right.
So
Right.
it did help me to be more bold. I
I
mean, it
bet.
did that.
I
And
bet.
to accept truth, whatever that truth was. Because if I
I
could
bet.
accept his being gone, if I had to live without him, I could live without whatever. It didn't matter.
Wow.
So
That's such a powerful idea when you're like, I have already suffered the most pain I will likely ever suffer in this
yeah,
lifetime. So your mean YouTube comments or you trying to convert me or you trying to tell me that I lost my faith because of grief, that it does nothing because
see,
the that
exactly.
that impenetrable barrier was cut through long ago. Like, come on in. You're like, do
Right.
your worst.
I know, I just
Interesting.
laugh. When I see all the comments, I just laugh. It's funny to me. But sometimes I do feel sorry for the people.
I do too. I do
Yeah.
too. Yeah, they used to hurt my feelings when I was younger, when I was real young, but now I'm like, "Man, what kind of place do you have to be in to say the things that some of these people say?" Like, that's gotta be a tough place, a painful place.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think I've talked more about God since not believing than than I ever did before. Like, I think now I spend so much more time talking about God, thinking about God, reading about God, studying about God than I ever did when I thought God was the way to get me to the eternal life. It's probably an obsession. It might be unhealthy, but I'm
Well,
enjoying it for the time
it
being.
might be, but I thought about that and I thought, you spent 60 years of your life, or at least 50, really into this stuff, and you wasted so much time on it. So why are you still doing this? What's wrong with you? And then I realized I enjoy this.
Yeah.
And not
Yeah.
just that, I want to help other people. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
would argue that you actually weren't wasting your time at all. You just didn't realize you were studying for a different thesis project. You thought you were studying for one thing. And then when you got there, you were like, oh, I'm going to take all the same experiences and information and just use it for something totally different.
Yeah, when I was doing my dissertation, I had 50 pages in it that I couldn't actually use because I was afraid they wouldn't give me. So I just took it out and saved it for another book. I actually put that part in a book that I wrote called Yahweh on Trial. Um,
Oh, I'm going to write
yeah,
that down.
yeah, I put him on trial, and I have like, I can't remember how many things are in there. It's his book, his character, his plan of salvation, and then I come up with the verdict, and of course I find him guilty. So, so that's that book. It's kind of a short book, and then a friend wanted me to write a book that maybe a 10-year-old could read. So I took my book,
Oh,
the Judeo-Christian Myth, and I kind of summarized that in a way that maybe a 10-year-old can understand it, and I called that "The Truth Is a Funny Thing."
interesting.
Yeah, so I
How
published
many
that.
books have you written?
Oh my goodness, I think 23, 24, I'm not sure. I have
Wow.
I have a set of books too called the Eastern Kentucky Girl books. And I take it's based on my life. Some of it's true, some of it's not. But I take myself in these 6 books from 5 years old to 14 years old, take myself
Wow.
through 8th grade. So I
Wow.
did that for my children. I wanted them to have that as kind of a legacy.
That's
Mhm.
awesome. That's so
Yeah.
good. Man,
Yeah.
it's just
Oh, so see, I was a writer before. And that's how I don't think I know anything until I put it down on paper.
yes.
You know,
Yes.
that's how I process, either by talking or by writing it down. And if I don't write it down, then I'll forget it. Yeah.
100%. 100 like that I could not have said it better because I'm getting my master's in writing as we speak.
Oh,
It's
cool.
taking me way longer than 2 years, so
Oh,
kudos to you.
well, I was retired,
Yeah.
you
Oh, that's
know.
true. You know what? Touche. Touche. That
Yeah.
counts. But I could not agree more. I feel like our best ideas aren't our best ideas until we've put them on paper or spoken them out loud.
Yes.
We've created them into existence and now they're our best ideas. But as long as they stay up here and they don't either go on the page or come out somehow, they just bounce around in there and they don't reach their full potential because we never give them the chance.
Yeah. Yeah. And you forget if you don't write it down,
Totally.
you
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've kept
Absolutely.
journals most of my life because
Same.
otherwise I wouldn't know anything.
Yes, yes. Yes, I love going back and reading an old journal,
Oh,
and you're just like, "Oh, I don't remember feeling that way. Woof." Like, that
I
seems like a
know,
yeah.
and you forget all the things that you did.
Yep,
You
yep.
you know how I do my articles that I do for my YouTube?
How do you do that?
Well, I go to bed. Actually, I don't know if I should say this, but I can't sleep without a little green herb.
Me too. Me
Okay.
too. Right
Okay.
there with you.
So, well, you know how it opens up your mind.
Sure does.
And so, yeah. And my mind is kind of like, normally it's kind of like, necklaces that get
Mhm,
all chained together and you
mhm.
can't get them apart. That's kind of how my mind is. But when I do that, it's like it all just unfolds, and I can
Interesting.
think clearly. And so I'll go to bed then, and it's like I'm laying there and bam, 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 here it all comes. And in my head, I will write paragraph after paragraph, and I'll grab my phone, take down notes, and then the next morning I get up and write it all down, and put it all together and organize it. And then I usually spend a week on that one. Every day I read it again and add things or take out things or, fix bad grammar or whatever I've done, and put Bible verses in there and all that. And that's how I do it.
That's interesting. And do you think I've noticed that so far, all the ideas that you've told me about, like when you were first studying for theology, all your best ideas come when you sleep on it, it sounds like. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, I was gonna say, do you think it's more to do with the fact that you are just putting everything away and focusing on that idea? Or do you think it comes with the sleep? Like, what do you think it is that I hear a weird noise on my side. There we go. Um, what do you think it is that makes the ideas come to you?
I think my mind gets relaxed. I think that's how it is. Well, if you sleep, you wake up with a new perspective, a fresh mind. But with the other thing, I think it's just because my mind is relaxed as I'm trying to go to bed, and all these thoughts, just these weird things come to me that I think I never would have thought of. Just
Interesting.
and I love it.
Yeah, yeah. Or when you remove all the distractions and you're just there
Yeah,
kind of resting in the dark, just letting your brain go the direction it
yeah,
chooses to go, that's when
exactly.
they come to you.
Yeah, and I think, if you know the Bible, if you've studied it your whole life, you, you'll think of things. A certain verse will come to you, and you'll say, "Oh, wait, that is stupid." Yeah,
Yeah.
then you start putting all these other verses together to show how stupid it is.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
That is one of the things I tell people all the time that, like, I think one of the most powerful weapons is somebody who is not religious but has read the whole Bible, because you have, like, I remember the other day I was thinking about something, and I think I was talking to my brother or somebody, and I said, God would never play a game. And then I thought, oh, the whole story of Job is him just playing a game with that guy. The
yeah.
devil's like, "Bet," and God's like, "Bet," and then they just ruin this guy's life, and so I was like, "Never mind, I take that back. He plays games with everybody. Yeah, he does."
Oh, I
Yeah.
know. And it's like he's not the author of confusion.
Oh,
Really?
he is the literal author of confusion. He
Yeah.
created the confusion, developed, published, sent it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
know. In fact, I've just been working on an article about how confusing the Bible is. Because when you say that to Christians, when you say it's really difficult, they're like, "Oh no, it's easy. You just have to accept it." And so I'm working on an article that with a bunch of topics and okay, what do Christians believe about this? And it'll be like 3 or 4 different answers you get. And, when I was doing my master's degree, of course, you have to read a lot of books and you have to write a lot of papers. And every time a topic would come up, it'd be all these experts, 6 or 7 of them, all believing differently about it. Now,
yes.
I'm sorry, it's not like we just don't want to know or we just don't want to understand. We do. I mean,
Yes.
we spend our life reading this book,
Yes.
studying this book, and studying books written about this book. You would think a God could write a book that would be very simple. And it says it's so easy that a wayfaring fool won't err in it. Well, highly intelligent people err in it.
Yes. Yes. Like, have you been to Earth recently? Because I will tell you, there are plenty of wayfaring fool, and none of us are not erring in it. Um, yeah, that is such a good point. Is, people. when they talk about a merciful God and a good God and a kind God, you're like, okay, but he could have literally just left it at the 10 commandments. He could have just left it. Those could have been the 10 rules. That could have been it. But
Yeah.
instead, we have this big manual and we're told, first of all, don't ask questions, have faith. Second of all, if you do have questions, you're going to find the answer in the Bible. Third of all,
Mhm.
when you don't find the answer in the Bible, it's because you're not praying hard enough. Not because it's not in there. You just clearly don't know how to interpret God's scripture
Mhm.
and you need to pray more. And then when you pray and you still aren't quite sure what the answer is, you're praying incorrectly and you need to go back and read your Bible again. And it's just this cyclical.
Oh, I
It,
know.
yeah, it's like when you buy something off Amazon and the instructions are in a foreign language and people are like, "Well, we're not going to send you the English version. You just need to figure out how to translate that version. You clearly aren't." And you're like, "I'm just trying to put together a bookshelf that I have to put together." So, but it's our salvation. It's like the most
Yeah.
important aspect of being alive.
Oh, I know, and that's the thing, and that messed me up in a lot of other ways too, because that was the important thing. And it's like I remember somebody saying to me, exercise is not important because the Bible says bodily exercise profits little, so you don't have to worry about physical exercise. I mean, and for me, it was like all this knowledge out there. I don't need to know science. I mean, I don't need to know history. Why do I need all this stuff? But I was a good student. I mean,
Right.
I was valedictorian in 8th grade and valedictorian in high school. I was number 2 in my college class. I made good grades,
Wow.
but but um, I learned it for the test, and
Yes.
then I would consciously put it out of my mind
Yes.
because it wasn't important. This earth's going to be burned up. All that matters is the afterlife, and that's what I put myself to, and it really bothers me when people act like, well, you've just never been a true Christian, you know.
Nope.
Yeah, or you just really didn't get into it. You don't know what the Bible says, and they'll give you these Bible verses like you don't know them already.
You're like, I know what it says. That's the problem. I know
Yes,
exactly what it says.
yes, and I know that I put my heart into it.
Yes. Yes. 100%. Most of the people I know who, like, including myself, who have had a journey through deconstruction at one point in their life wanted nothing more than to be the perfect Christian. They wanted
Yes,
nothing more than to be devout. I remember praying to God and saying, send me a sign. If you send me any sign whatsoever, it can be anything. Just let me know that you are here, and I will spend the rest of my life telling everyone about you and
sure,
how great you are. And so, when I talk to people who say, God is just, God is merciful, this and that and the other, I say, at least admit that he's not those things. If you're not going to consider the idea that maybe the Bible isn't necessarily true, at least consider that if you truly believe what the Bible says, we can at least sit here and admit to one another that God is not kind, he's not just, he's not loving, he's actually vindictive and evil and creates rules for the intent of you failing just to see what happens. Can we at least say that he's that kid with the microscope over the ants or with the little.
right,
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about,
yeah, but they won't admit to that.
which is wild.
Yeah, but what I don't understand is why I didn't see it sooner. It
Yeah.
it really frustrates me to think how beguiled I was. And so I understand other people. I know how they see me. I know how I saw Madeline O'Hare, for instance. I just thought she must be the most evil woman in the world. And she probably had kids and grandkids that she loved. She was probably just
Yep.
like me.
Yep.
But I thought she was horrible.
Yep.
And so I know how people look at me, but I mean, I don't care. But
Yeah.
but still, I know unless unless they love me and they just feel sorry for me, or they think I had a psychotic break or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I do. That is a good question, though. I do wonder how many people think that. How many people say, oh, it's because that situation she had with her son. Which, if
Right?
Well, and it's interesting to me because I spent 10 seconds on your YouTube channel and I knew that you're not an evil person. You're not a mean person. Like a delightful person. So they clearly don't
Thank
watch your
you.
YouTube channel if they think that.
Well, and people will say that to me. They'll say, "Well, she seems sweet, but."
But
Yeah,
but
no, I know.
that's
Well,
awesome.
and the thing is, mental illness runs in my family. My father was mentally ill, and so I could get that my family might think, that the loss of my son, that was just the final straw, and so they sympathized with me and loved me anyway. I don't know.
Yeah. Has anyone ever sat down from your family sat down and had a real in-depth conversation with you about it, or do they just not bring it up?
I've got one sister who we talked on the phone not too long ago, and we discussed it, and we discussed it a little bit. But she's a sister who doesn't get upset. You can disagree with her, and that's fine. No matter what harsh words come out of anybody's mouth, it doesn't matter. Next time she sees you, it's like it didn't happen, which is a great way to be.
That's a
Um,
wonderful way to be.
yeah, but now on Facebook, I used to post a lot on my own personal Facebook, and it caused some trouble with two of my sisters because they did come on my Facebook and they would try to argue with me, and it was just not good. And
Yeah.
so they got off my Facebook. We're not friends on my Facebook anymore. And so I started another Facebook so that I could be on there with them, and then I didn't post anything. But I don't do it much anymore because I don't want to be known for what I'm against.
Right.
I want to be known for just a well-rounded person with a lot of interests. And by the way, I've recently started modeling.
You did?
I did. My daughter and I were out, and some guy came up to her, and he was like, "Is that your mother?" And she said, "Yeah." And he's like, "She is so elegant. That's the last thing in the world I would a word that the last word I'd describe myself as. I've never thought of myself as elegant, but anyway, he wanted to photograph me, so I went and did some modeling for him, and he asked me if I
Wow.
would like to continue doing it, and I said, "Sure." So yeah,
Ivy.
yes, at the age of 71.
That is amazing. My goal in life is to be called elegant by a stranger. That's
Oh,
what
really?
a word. What a word. Like this
See?
such that's it's like being called classy. Like classy, elegant. Like what great. That's wonderful. Good for you.
Well, I guess I never thought of myself that way,
Do
so
you
it's
think
kinda cool.
do you think maybe once you deconstructed, once you said to yourself, I'm going this new direction, and you started your YouTube channel and you started just, it sounds like focusing on things that made you happy, that you were interested in. Do you think that is showing on the outside? And that's why you are now coming across as, say, elegant and like you're attracting attention like that because maybe it's changed just your outward energy and how you enter a room, maybe?
Wow, that's interesting. I never thought about that, but I mean, it's always possible.
Yeah.
It's and we were in Salvation Army. And I was just going
Wow.
around looking at stuff,
Wow.
and he said he had followed us around, and he was scared we thought he was, just a stalker or whatever, and I guess he didn't wanna approach me, so he approached my daughter instead, and she went with me when I did it, so and, was my helper, my assistant, his assistant. We had so much fun.
That
But
sounds like fun.
yeah, and so that's the thing, I don't want that to be all I am, you
Right.
know? I wanna
Yes.
do it,
Yes.
because it's important to me and I enjoy it. Well, I don't honestly think I could stop. I mean, you get these ideas, they come, you can't just ignore that.
Right. Right. It's like once you've opened that floodgate, there's no closing it. That
Yeah,
yourself that you're not going to be able to close it, especially if you're truly getting this amount of joy from it. It's like why
yeah,
would you
yeah.
close that gate?
Yeah, but, I never intended to do videos. I never thought I would because, well, I just didn't want to. I don't like well, I say that. I had a cable TV show for 5 years. Uh, it was called
What?
Writers yeah, it was called Writers Reading, and I interviewed other writers, and I read my stuff and interviewed them. I mean, I was like the producer, the director, everything. Um, and so I don't know why I say I wouldn't do that, but I never thought I'd get on YouTube ever.
Yeah.
I just wrote articles because to me, I would rather read something because that way you can go quickly. You don't have to wait for them to, you know, people talk about all kinds of
Mhm.
stuff, and so I want to get it done. I want to read it, and plus, if I miss something, my mind strays. I can go back and read it.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but then it dawned on me one day, everybody's not like me.
True.
Some people like to watch, some people like to listen. And so I thought, okay, I guess I'm just going to have to do videos of my articles. So,
That's
what is-
awesome. Do you think you'll ever record audiobooks, or have you already?
no, I haven't done that. I don't think I would. I think, well, first of all, I don't think my accent works well for that.
I'm totally biased, but I think so. Maybe that's just because I
Really?
usually have an accent. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh. I just feel like people wouldn't understand me well sometimes if they can't see my mouth moving. I don't know.
That's interesting. That I started a true crime podcast the other day, and the girl is Southern, and I stopped and I was like, I've never heard another Southerner with a podcast. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
realize I needed it in that moment until I heard it. I didn't realize it was lacking until I
Oh,
heard it, and I was like, oh,
yeah.
so I mean, or maybe you could hire somebody that you think sounds like to read the books for you.
Yeah.
That's delightful. That's delightful. And something that's so refreshing about you, Ivy, is that a lot of my audience, when they reach out to me, maybe they're 40, maybe they're 50, maybe they're 60, they say, I feel ridiculous for taking this long to catch on. I feel stupid. I feel ridiculous. I feel like, what's even the point? Where do I even go from here? And I feel like you are a prime example that it only begins there. Like, that's like figuring this stuff out, even like further along in life. That's just the beginning of your new chapter, and you have done so much. Like you said, you're modeling, you're on YouTube, you're
Yeah.
writing new books, you're
Yeah.
reflecting on your old books, and you've changed your mind and you've admitted it publicly. And I just think you're like a bright shining example to people that there's no such thing as having wasted too much time. Very much like I said earlier, I don't feel like you wasted your time. I feel like you were just studying for a different dissertation. You were just researching for a different dissertation. And you seem like you're living your best life. I mean, I don't mean to speak for you, but you seem happy. You seem great.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I probably am living my best life now because I'm free to do that. You know,
Yes.
I mean, I grew up, we couldn't dance. We weren't allowed to dance. I didn't go to prom. I didn't, you know, I was late to my baccalaureate. I guess it was my college baccalaureate no, it's my high school baccalaureate. I was late for it because it was Sunday night and I had to go to church. I couldn't miss
Wow.
church, for a baccalaureate. I mean,
Yeah.
we couldn't even sing any, the Bible says sing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. And so that was it. You couldn't sing what my dad called jig songs. He said that was a lie. Because if you sing, I don't know, my wife left me or whatever, country song you might sing. Well, that didn't happen. You're lying. And so if you sing a lie, that's the same as telling a lie, even though obviously, well, you understand. But that's what he said. And so,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, we couldn't say gosh or gee or golly. We couldn't even say my goodness, because only God is good, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, we were so stifled. And sometimes people say to me, well, you were just in a cult, or you were in this really strict religion. You need to come over here where I am, because there's freedom over here. Well, Yahweh's still evil. So
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, Yahweh's still an evil ghost sky man. So, you know,
yeah.
that's but and it's also funny to me that people talk to people like you and they say you must be angry at God, because it's
Yes.
like you have to believe in God in order to be angry at him.
Yeah.
I don't understand how that's hard to like, I'm not angry at Santa Claus
Yeah,
either. You know what I mean? Like,
I know. It's crazy. It's like saying, I don't believe in rain because I don't want to get wet.
yeah, and
Well, sorry, but
you're
yeah,
like, "Well, I stay inside, I guess.
yeah,
Wish the best for you." That's very interesting. Well, Ivy, this has been I've loved talking to you. This has been an absolute delight. I don't know what I expected, but this has far exceeded the expectations
Oh,
I
well,
had.
thank you.
You're a delight.
Well, thank you. I had a bunch of notes. I thought I was going to be able to read my notes, but then when we came on, I was like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to look at my notes. But you made it possible that I didn't need to. And
Oh,
just the questions you asked and the things you said, you made this just like a conversation. So it's
well,
been really
thanks.
nice. I've enjoyed it so much.
Thank you. I have loved
Yeah.
having you on. I would love to welcome you back if there's ever any other topic you want to cover or conversation you want
Okay.
to have. Because again, like I love just having a conversation with people like you and getting to take those conversations and introducing you to more people who might need to hear from someone like you. You know, they might like kind of like my other podcast, like they might not realize that that idea or that thought process is missing until they hear from someone like you and they think, there it is. That's they articulated what I've been trying to say all this time.
Yeah. And have you, and I want to ask you something.
Sure.
Since you have left Christianity, do you feel like you're a better person?
100%. 100%. I'm not sure if it has as much to do with that or age because I'm also coming into my
Oh,
30s, and we
yeah.
experience, but I 100% believe that it is because of deconstruction. If I
Yeah.
had to guess. Mhm.
Well, I mean, I was 62, so it wasn't age for me. I think what it was, at least for me, was you're so bound up in these rules. You don't have time to stop and think about whether something's right or wrong. Doesn't matter if it's
Yes.
right or wrong. If he always says do it, you do it. If he says kill your
Yes.
child, you do it.
Yes.
You're,
Yes.
and you can't trust your brain.
Exactly.
And now
Exactly.
I can think, is this good or is this bad? Is this coming from a place of love? And I love animals more even, you know,
Yes. Yes.
everything. I love people more. I feel like my ego, because you have an ego. You have
You
to,
do.
yeah, you have to be that good person. You have to be that good Christian. You have to present to other people and not let your God down.
Yes.
And so you
Yes.
have to pretend sometimes.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so you just don't have room to
Yeah.
think about goodness or
Not only
loving.
that, but not only that, but when you have that mentality, which I remember having like it was yesterday, where you have to be this perfect Christian, you have to be this like elevated girl or woman in Christ. A lot of times, in order to elevate yourself, you also have to push other people down. So not
Yes,
only are you working on yourself, but you're saying, I'm also better than that person or that girl or that family or that church or that religion. Like I'm up
right.
here and I'm not perfect because nobody's perfect in the eyes of God, but I'm better than all of y'all down here. You know what I mean?
Well, and if you have to think that because you're a Christian. I
Mm-hmm.
looked at people who didn't go to churches. Well, I thought they were evil, just like Madeline O'Hara. I thought she was evil for being an atheist. And it was everybody for me. It wasn't just, atheists or Hindus or Buddhists or anybody like that. It was other Christians
Everybody.
because the Church of Christ was the one true church. Everybody else was either, a Catholic or they were in these evil denominations who didn't know the truth. And we had to teach them. So we were better than them. We were better than everybody. So of course we
Yes.
have an ego.
Yes. Yes. And I think what helps you become or at least feel like you're becoming a better person once you leave is when you stop lying to yourself to elevate yourself. You stop saying I'm perfect and you're like I'm not perfect. I never will be perfect. No amount of prayer will make me perfect. I think it makes you start to genuinely look at how to be a better person. You go from looking at how to be a better Christian, and you're like, I no longer am interested in that. How do I become a better person? And a lot of times, the things that make you a better Christian go against what make you a better person.
Yes, exactly.
And in order to, a lot of faiths say, don't involve yourself with secular people, don't involve yourself with secular music. But in order to be a better person, you have to understand, who are those people? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? How can I interview someone if I'm not willing to understand where they're coming from, or hear them out, or listen to what they have to say? And also, I think when we realize that there's nothing left after this, we spend as much time trying to do our best during this, as opposed to
Yes.
the mystical, the
Yes.
prize at the end.
Well, and we can't just go to bed and say, forgive me. And you just push it off. You didn't even have to apologize to anybody. You just
Mm-mm.
say, I'm sorry, and then it's off you. But now we have to fix it. We have to do better. You know,
Yes.
and then too, there was that song, you never mentioned him to me. So you think you're gonna stand, on the day of judgment, and there's somebody's gonna look at you and say, you were a Christian, you didn't mention him to me. So you felt like you had to constantly be telling people you're going to hell, you're bad, you need to change. Well, nobody's gonna like you when you're doing that. I mean,
Right. Right. Well, that's why being a Christian is not easy, Ivy, because we have to spread the gospel whether people like us or not. They don't like the truth, Ivy.
right,
Um,
right, yeah.
if you had a message, or a lesson for anybody who maybe they're listening to this, and maybe they're also in their 60s and questioning things, maybe they're in their 40s or their 70s, or maybe they're, early 20s, and they're one of those people who dedicated their whole life to being the perfect Christian, and they're starting to question whether or not that's true anymore for them, what would you say? What advice would you give them?
Well, my son and I were going to buy a house one time. And the house this was back before the prices went crazy. The
Yes.
house was like $85,000. We put down a $500 deposit. And then we changed our minds. We just didn't want it anymore. So, of course, we didn't get back our deposit. But when I was talking to my son about it, I was like, but we've put down this $500 deposit. And he said, Mom, you don't throw $85,000 after $500. And you don't live the rest of your life in something that was wrong just because you spent so much time on it. You move
Yes.
on and you have a better life and you're happier. Oh my goodness. So many things are so much better. And
Yes.
that peace, that peace that passes understanding that you were supposed to get, but you never got it. Because how are you going to get it if somebody's going to be burning in hell, even if it's not you?
Right.
Yeah, but you finally get it. You have that peace. It's wonderful.
Oh,
So yeah, that's what I would say. It's worth it. It's worth it to move on. Don't worry about the past. I mean, you move forward. You can't move backward.
right.
Yes,
Right.
it's forward.
Right. And would you rather spend 60 years or 65 years?
Yeah,
60 years or 70 years? 60
yeah,
years or 90 years, Yeah, absolutely. I completely
yeah,
agree. I could not agree
yeah.
more. Well, Ivy, this has been just a lovely conversation. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I'm already trying to come up with reasons to have you back on and things to ask you about, but this has just been delightful. And anybody listening, I have linked Ivy's channel in the comments of whatever platform you're listening to or watching on. So please check out her channel, check out her videos. You won't regret it. And Ivy, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sydney.